Hello. The characteristics of effective learning are one of the most crucial elements of the early years foundation stage, truly foundational. And Birth to Five Matters offers important support for practitioners and settings to understand how these are so important and what their role is in supporting the characteristics of effective learning for the children that they work with. This young girl, 7 months old, can give us a quick example of that powerful learning process. She's learned so much. She can sit up and control her body. She can integrate what she sees, feels, hears. She's learning about cause and effect with the pulling on the toy and the weight of it and so on. She's understanding words said around her and the way language works. It didn't just happen by accident. She had to do the work. She had to have these behaviors and habits of mind in order to make all that happen. Because learning is not something that anyone can do for anyone else. The learner has to do the work. And so these characteristics are truly foundational for everything else that will be accomplished and learned in a person's lifetime. And research is piling up continuing increasing evidence that these remain some of the most important foundations. In the early years, when we have strength here, then it affects our lifetime outcomes in our education, in our careers, in our relationships, in our health. So truly important foundations. The Birth to Five Matters supports practitioners and settings in two basic ways, supporting understanding of how these characteristics develop, what they are, why they matter, and generally how we can support them to develop. So within the core document of Birth to Five Matters, I've marked here both self-regulation and the section on characteristics of effective learning, learners for life, because characteristics overlap with self-regulation. Self-regulation includes the emotional side of self-regulation, but also the cognitive side. We have to control our thinking and learning, and that's where the characteristics come in. It also supports practice. What does that mean in the way that we work with children? So there are sections that will support you there. As well as the core document, of course, there is the online Birth to Five Matters and many additional resources. Take particular note of the film, 10-minute film, which shows you what does it look like for different ages of children across all those characteristics. And really useful as a staff team to develop your understanding, a joint understanding, and really useful to share with parents to say why this is important, why we do what we do. Case studies that, again, shows you detail across the age ranges of what children are doing and how that's supported by the adults who live and work with them. You can read a lot more detail, both in those resources, but also in the bibliography. So you can extend your learning in that way. Birth to Five Matters is built around this basic understanding of development and learning, that it starts with the child who has to do the work, has to bring those behaviors, habits of mind, and attitudes to their learning. And then what they meet with the people around them and in their experiences determines the learning and development. That is true not just for the areas of learning and development. It's true for what they're learning about themselves and how they're developing and maintaining those learning powers. So what does a child bring in the characteristics? The three characteristics we know are mentioned very briefly in the statutory framework. But what do they mean? They're all crucial. It's not about a learning style and you can choose one or the other, because it's the learning sequence that's important and necessary for all learners. Playing and exploring, about having those experiences, being engaged, being ready to learn through getting all of that input, active learning is about being the active agent. I have the motivation, the persistence, the willpower, willing myself to learn and to do and to achieve. And then we have to think about all those experiences and make sense in our own minds and monitor and plan, etc. So we have to be able to learn from those experiences, all of them crucial. And then we also need to understand what our role is. Keep in our own mind, what do I need to do in the way that I am with these children, in the way I relate to them, and the experiences I give that will help them to keep building these capacities. Birth to 5 Matters helps you to step back and look at the bigger picture, and to say that the EYFS, yes, has 7 areas of learning development, prime areas, specific areas. We have the characteristics alongside weaving through, bring them into the foreground, and to say, if our curriculum is about what we want for children, then characteristics have to be very strong within that. And we think about, what do we want to provide? What do we want to support for children in terms of the characteristics, as well as the content of the areas? And that's true also as we observe, assess, and plan, that we observe to understand, how are children showing us these? And what can I understand about that, about the way they're thinking and how they feel about themselves and their learning and their experiences? And how do I plan to build on that, to keep that amazing, astounding ability of a baby learning strong as they move on, and to help them to be more aware of it and more in charge of it? The grids within Birth to 5 Matters are laid out in a familiar way and start with the unique child. So helping us to see what is the more detail of what those 3 different characteristics include, what might they look like? Because the more aware of them we are, the more they're in our mind and we're thinking, what do I see? How do I support? And important for us to recognize those in our children and help children to recognize them in themselves. So then, no point just doing the diagnosis. I see it, I understand it. What are we going to do about it is the next critical step. So we have suggestions, prompts for you to think for yourself about, how do I relate to children? What emotional climate for feeling safe to take a risk, for feeling valued, for the persistence and involvement I bring, all of those behaviors. How in my interactions do I scaffold, do I support, do I suggest? And in my feedback, am I helping children to see that these are important, these are valuable? And then same in the enabling environment, there are suggestions about what kinds of experiences and opportunities are provided by the way we have our routines and environments. Because you can't teach characteristics in a directed way, they have to be lived. Children need experiences to feel how that feels and to build those habits and those ways of engaging in their experiences. Now, these can be used, these grids, as for the whole setting, for you as an individual, almost as step back and let's have an audit. Let's see if I understand all these. Let's see, what are we doing? How do we do that within our own work in terms of our relationships and our environments? So, worth engaging with as a, let's get to grips with what kinds of things matter here. They can also be used in more specific situations. If you notice something particular about a child that you want to support, or a group of children, and you maybe think, I'm wondering if I could do more for this small subgroup of children. Well, look and see which characteristic, which bit is it that you want to build on, and there will be suggestions. It's for you to think for yourself, how is that relevant to my children, to their situation, and to the way that we work? So it's not a recipe, but it's inviting you also to be a problem-solving, independent thinker. The basic underlying message is this, that the characteristics of effective learning are absolutely core to the best that we can do for children, supporting their ability to think for themselves, to make their own choices and decisions, to understand and put things together that make sense to them. That will support them throughout their lives, whatever lies ahead, and is one of the ways that we absolutely lay a foundation in the early years. Thank you.